different today. I get asked so many questions about chalk painting furniture, and I write the blog Marty's Musings, and on that, one of my most visited posts is one about chalk painting. And I also did another Facebook Live a couple weeks ago where I showed all the chalk, not all, but several of the chalk painted projects in my home. So I thought I actually, and this is, my setup may be a little strange. I'm hoping to be able to zoom in and do all that kind of stuff, but we'll just see how it goes. But I got this piece of furniture on the side of the road, and I thought, wow, that would be perfect to paint different colors so that I can teach my readers about chalk painting and have you guys ask me questions. If you're on here, say hello and where you're from, and if you've ever attempted chalk painting. So I love chalk paint for one reason: it's water-based. So the cleanup is very easy, and I am a messy painter. I am not. My husband's a painting contractor, and he is amazing. Me, not so much. Make sure I have tape, make sure I have lots of newspaper, and I'm just messy. That's the beauty of chalk paint, is that you can always clean it off your hands, clean it off the floor, wherever. You should still protect your surfaces, but chalk paint is so very forgiving, and that's something that I love about it. I literally have chalk painted projects all over my house, and not a single one really looks the same. So if you're on here, tell me if you've tried chalk painting before. But what I did in preparation, and I'm gonna flip the camera down a little bit lower in just a minute, but I painted 3 different colors, and I am going to try different waxes on here and see how it works. I'm going to show you a dark wax and a clear wax. I'm also hopefully going to do a little bit of whitewashing, which is another technique you can use. And one of the reasons I like chalk painting so much is because the price has gone down considerably. When chalk paint first came out, Annie Sloan was the first brand, I believe, and it was pricey. But so many different companies have their own brand of chalk paint now that it is not as expensive. But I like that you can take an old piece of furniture or some candle holders or whatever and try chalk paint, maybe distress it if that's your style, and have something completely different than what you started out with. So let me show you. Let's kind of get started. I'd love if you asked me questions as we go along. Not sure if I'm going to be able to see as I flip the camera down, but please ask me your questions and I'll try to answer them. So let's see if we can do this. Okay, so this is this kind of greenish color. That's this color. Then my go-to color is white. It's called the Everlasting, and it's in the Americana chalk paint. That's this stripe and this stripe. And then I also have this color on a table by my front door that I absolutely love. So this is this color right here. Let me flip it down just a little bit farther. Where did I just put it? Oh. Okay, you're going to need sandpaper too. Now, distressing, you do not have to distress your furniture. I have a piece in my living room that's just painted and I did not distress it. That is one way. But if you are interested in distressing, you can do it with sandpaper. If you're careful, you can easily use a sander as well, but you've got to be so careful about removing paint. So I just recommend using sandpaper, and you can get a heavier grit, something that will remove the chalk paint, and that's very helpful. One of the questions I got is, do you have to sand? My recommendation, chalk painting is such that you do not have to sand the surface. I would recommend that you clean it with like a good degreaser or just a really good basic cleaner. And if you're interested, leave me a message and I'll send you a link for a good one. You do not have to sand unless, in my opinion, you have some really rocky places. If you've got a piece that maybe has some of the wood removed, you may want to sand under those conditions, and it's really totally up to you. But chalk paint is such that it adheres to the wood without having to use a primer. That is one of the beauties of it. Y'all comment and let me know you're here. I'd love to know who you are and where you're from and your experience with chalk paint. Okay, so let's do, okay, this is a cream wax, and the consistency of this brand, let me see if I can show you. It's really liquidy. There are other brands that are a thicker consistency. And they say to use a lint-free cloth, and usually what I use is an old cut-up t-shirt. So that's just, you know, if you want to buy a cloth specifically for this, and if you want to buy brushes that are specifically for chalk painting, that is totally up to you, but I tend to be on the cheap. I'm just going with an old t-shirt. So you may not be able to see this well, and I'll flip the camera around after I'm done so you can see it. So can y'all see this right here? Okay. So this is the clear wax. And what I would do with the clear wax is just a protective coat on top of the paint. There are people that don't put anything except chalk paint on there, and then they may use a wax on top, or some people don't even use the wax. My recommendation is that if you're like if you're doing it on a table or something that's going to see a lot of traffic, I would definitely put a coat on top. So one thing you can do, and if you can tell it, and y'all, if I don't get this on me, it's going to be a miracle. You can see, and there you go. This is why we use newspaper. It's just clear, and it will dry. And what you can do after that, after it's completely dry, is just use a cloth and use a cloth and just buff it out to get a really good finish. Okay, next. Wait, let's try this. Honestly, if I'm doing a pretty small piece of furniture, I like using these just cheapo arts and crafts brushes that you can get. So and here's the tip for that. You can either use Vaseline to put on the top, then you're gonna put your dark wax, and then you're actually gonna remove some of it. Or you can use the varnish like we just did, and because I didn't do it ahead of time, I'm not gonna do it on there. But what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna what Vaseline does is repel the paint or the wax. It just kind of gives you places and makes it easier to remove the dark wax. You may just wanna do dark wax for a specific piece, or even just the edges where you're distressing. Okay, so hopefully that's going to be enough. And y'all, this is anxiety producing, hoping it's going to look right as I do this on camera. Okay, can y'all, hopefully you can see that. So I've applied this is, I think, the darkest. No, it's like a medium brown wax. And then all I'm doing is removing the dark wax so that it's not so dark. And I don't have any edges with what I painted here, but this is a really good technique to use on the edges. If you're going to distress, you want to think about, where is this piece of furniture used? Do people hold on to the sides of it? Is it a place where there's a knob? You want to think of the most high traffic areas, and then those are the places that you want to emphasize on distressing. So you can see that a little bit there. And I'm going to put just a little bit here on this piece. I used to never use dark wax, I think because I was scared of it, but I decided I wasn't gonna be scared of it anymore. If you're on here, let me see, I'm gonna slap this up. Hey Karen, getting ready to enter this world of painting my front door, yay. Hey Mariana. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions as you're watching, and I'll try to put the camera up and address them as I can. So that's a little bit, that's kind of a medium wax. And what you can do is, if you take some of the wax off and you take too much, just paint a little bit more. What I love about chalk paint is it is very forgiving. And if you do this and say you paint it white and you put a dark wax on it and you decide I don't like it, start all over. That's the beauty of chalk paint. So this is just a little, you can see right here, hopefully you can see this, is a little heavier. And what I would do would make sure that I would distress along these edges, but I distress even if you have a whole flat surface, I distress there as well. Okay, let's see what I want to do. I couldn't figure out how I wanted to set everything up, y'all, so just bear with me here. Okay, this is just a cheapo chip brush, and I don't think I waxed that. So you can use, if you're just jumping on here, you can use Vaseline, or you can use the clear cream wax. I'm using Vaseline today because it'll dry faster. You can always just use the Vaseline on the places that you want to distress. I'm kind of going over the whole thing right now, but you can always do it just on those areas, like on the edges or the handles or wherever that you might want to distress. Okay. And drop your questions in the chat and I'll address them when I get done. Okay, I don't like that I didn't leave enough of that. So you can just lightly, do you see how I'm just lightly removing the dark wax? It's still, so this is like a medium wax, this is a darker wax. And you can just kind of see, and I will probably take you over to my table and show you an example of a table that's done like this. Okay, let me check out questions. Hi, Marianne. I love all your ideas. Thanks for sharing. You're welcome. Hey, Karen. Heirloom Traditions has a line of chalk paints. There are so many new chalk paints on the market, and I would really love to work with some of the brands. So I'm gonna probably reach out to them, and because I'd love to know. Actually, Behr Paint. I was a Behr Paint ambassador for 3 years or so, and my husband loves Behr Paint. But they also have a new chalk paint out, and I have not tried that. So I'm not showing you anything that I haven't tried, and I know works. And on a side note, I did, just kind of as an experiment, I painted 2 tables on my deck. These are old, like $3 tables that I got at a yard sale. So I painted them. Both of them I used chalk paint. One was a red and one was a blue, kind of like this blue here. And the red table, I think, has done pretty well. And I sealed it. Okay, let me mention. That's the wax. Where's my varnish? Okay. So this is varnish. This is kind of like a polyurethane. This is like a sealant coat. So I sealed my tables outside that I chalk painted with this varnish, and one table's done pretty well and the other table looks really distressed. So honestly, in my opinion, I know people that have painted a lot of outdoor furniture with chalk paint. I don't think it's as effective as just using a paint that is meant and formulated for outdoor furniture. Drop me your questions if you have any. So this is a varnish that you can use. Like I said, if you have a project that, like a table or something that's going to be used a lot, you can seal it with this varnish. And I didn't go out to my husband's workshop, but there is another product that has nothing to do with chalk painting that you can seal it. I actually, if you've seen our farmhouse bathroom, we used a dresser that I found at Goodwill for $3, and we made a vanity out of it, and I chalk painted it. It took a lot of work, but I love the way it looks. But since it's by the sinks, I really need this other product to seal it well because it didn't work tremendously great. So I will be resealing that at some point. So this is the varnish here. Okay, so let's try. Why do I always forget the Vaseline? And this is the white. And I'm actually gonna put a little bit right here. Can y'all see that? Oops, sorry, y'all. So sorry. I hope you can see everything. And again, this is just Vaseline petroleum jelly. Okay. So this white and this dark wax is something that I might do on a piece where I only wanted to distress certain places of it. So you can kind of see on these edges right here. And I may try to go ahead and sand just a little bit even though it's not dry. So the harder you press, the more will come off. The more Vaseline you put on there, the easier it will remove. And so let's try this green color right here. Each color just gives it a different effect. Okay, so let's put this out of the way. So you can see here's the original, here's the chalk paint. And you can see the original and with just a little bit of the dark wax. Now, like I said, you can use, that's the varnish. You can use the cream wax, and that just gives it a solid covering, a little bit of protection, and then you can buff it after that. Okay, so when, y'all, I hate doing that. When you sand, what you want to do is to go over those edges where they get a lot of work, a lot of use, because that just makes the best sense. If you see old pieces of furniture and you see the worn places, that's where you would want to distress. So I do the main surface, and honestly, it's preference whether you want a lot, how much time you want to spend sanding. That is totally up to you. And I always do the edges and things, so let me kind of show you that. And whatever you sand is going to bring back the underside color. So if you're sanding, when you're sanding, this table is gonna, the color of this table is gonna come out from underneath. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Let me know. Okay, so can y'all see these areas that I have distressed? This wood that's underneath is what's going to come up through when you distress. Hey, Jen Yancey. This light's making me hot. Okay, the last thing, if you guys drop questions, if you have a question, drop them for me. I think I've kind of covered a little bit of everything. Yeah, okay, so what I did, somebody asked about whitewashing. I poured just a dab, literally, just a dab of water in there and an equal part of paint. And so I'm just gonna mix it together, and we call that whitewashing. You can also do this with regular paint, but I like doing it with chalk paint. So let me show you what I'm doing. So you can see. Oh, you can't see that. Okay. So obviously that's very liquidy, and I may have too much water now. We'll just have to see. And you just put it on there, and that's other paint that just bled through. You just kind of do it by strokes. Let it dry and see how you like it. And that's whitewashing. I've literally done that with a lot of different projects. Anybody have any questions, drop them in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, say it's replay, and then just ask me your questions. I'm going